Something feels off about how we've judged Generation Z. For years, people laughed at them iPad kids, TikTok zombies, a soft generation glued to brain rot content. Sure, they're more vocal about identity and pronouns, but every generation has its battles. Boomers and millennials grew up believing they had it harder while mocking Gen Z as fragile. Despite their flaws, Gen Z is showing a kind of courage nobody expected. They're not just posting memes. They're confronting governments, fighting injustice, and forcing change. Welcome to GreyBTC. Like and subscribe, it helps the channel grow. And if you've got thoughts on this, drop them in the comments. I read them all. In this video, we're breaking down why Gen Z might just be the most underestimated generation of all. Generation Z, let's get one thing straight. These are the people born between the mid-1990s and the early 2010s. Don't confuse them with boomers, who came right after World War II, or millennials, who grew up during the internet boom. Gen Z is younger, and for years, they've been mocked as fragile, overly sensitive, and too obsessed with pronouns and identity. But here's the thing. Every older generation thinks the one after them is weak. Boomers said millennials killed hard work. Millennials said Gen Z was brain-rotted by TikTok. But what nobody expected is that this so-called weak generation would be the first to take to the streets. They said Gen Z was soft, too addicted to TikTok, too lost in memes, too fragile for the real world. But this is what they didn't see coming. In Kenya, young people turned frustration into power. President William Ruto tried pushing a finance bill that would raise taxes on almost everything: fuel, bread, even mobile data. But it wasn't the opposition that stopped him, it was the youth. Gen Z organized online, marched in the streets, and used their phones as their loudspeakers. The hashtag number Reject Finance Bill spread across the world, and when police fired tear gas, they didn't hide, they recorded, they exposed, they stood their ground, and in the end, they won. The government was forced to withdraw the bill, a massive victory for a generation that was once called lazy and disconnected. Now shift to Madagascar, a country most people only know for its wildlife and rainforests. But behind that beauty lies poverty and neglect. Power cuts last over 12 hours a day. Entire neighborhoods go days without clean water. President Andry Rajoelina has been in power for 16 years, making the same promises again and again, while the people starve. And once again, it's the young people who've had enough. Thousands of them, mostly Gen Z, flooded the streets of Antananarivo. They were mocked as the TikTok generation, yet they were the ones brave enough to face tear gas and rubber bullets for the right to live with dignity. When the unrest grew too loud to ignore, Rajoelina tried damage control. He fired his prime minister, Christian Nintse, dissolved the government, and called for dialogue. But the people aren't buying it. After 16 years, promises mean nothing. The youth are asking harder questions. If you couldn't fix the country in 16 years, why should anyone believe you now? And this isn't just about Kenya or Madagascar. It's a global wave. In Nepal, young people are taking on corruption. In Peru, students are demanding accountability. Everywhere you look, Gen Z, the so-called TikTok generation, is rising up against the same cycle of greed, power, and lies. They're proving that the world's most mocked generation might actually be its most fearless. Maybe it's time we admit it. The world was wrong about Gen. They were called fragile, but they're standing up in ways no one else dared to. They were called self-absorbed, yet they're fighting not for themselves, but for a future they may never even get to see. From the streets of Nairobi to the capital of Madagascar, from Kathmandu to Lima, this generation has turned disillusionment into defiance. They've realized that politics isn't something to avoid, it's something to fix. Because when governments fail, economies crumble, and corruption becomes a lifestyle, someone has to say enough. And maybe that's the irony. The same phones that were once blamed for destroying Gen Z's attention span have become their greatest weapon. TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram are no longer just entertainment apps, they're mobilization tools. The same places where people laughed at memes are now where revolutions begin. While older generations argue about who's to blame, Gen Z is out there demanding action. They're not waiting for permission. They're tired of watching politicians grow rich while their families struggle to survive. This isn't just protest, it's evolution. The world may look chaotic, but maybe that chaos is what healing looks like. Welcome to the new era, where the so-called TikTok generation has become the conscience of the world. If you liked this video, you might also like why everyone was wrong about Gen Z.